Yeah, and it'll give us relaxed time to go and get some coffee as well. So, over to you. Thank you.
Oh, so you don't get half an hour of me. Okay, so I'm Dr. Rachel Sharp. I'm in the School of Education, and I'm the lucky one that gets to talk to you guys about our paired mentoring project. So Nick is over there in the room. Just wave. That's it. And Ian, just wave. Thank you. So it's a collaboration between the three of us that we did back in 2015. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and where that's now led to, and I'm going to try and avoid this camera all the way through this. So, what was the purpose? And I think it's really, really important that I make it as clear as possible for you all to understand what we're trying to achieve. I'm very much of the believer that if you can't articulate your research to someone outside of your area, then I'm really not understanding why we would do it. So what we're trying to achieve is we wanted to investigate the use of academically asymmetrical paired mentoring in terms of raising the attainment and attitudes of Year 11 students that were classed as disadvantaged. So what does that actually mean? In simplest terms, it was getting undergraduates from a university to go in and mentor Year 11 students, so they're about 15, 16, in their final year of their GCSE from September to June, to mentor them through their GCSE science exams. Now, the disadvantage is really important. I'm going to articulate that in a minute. Ooh, there we go. So, disadvantaged pupils is a name given by the Department of Education for any child that receives a set amount of money. So, it's classed as free school meals children. For those of you who were at school sort of in the 90s, the same age, you may have known them as the free school meals kids. That's certainly what was kind of dubbed at the time. But it's any child that's been looked after, any child that's going through a disadvantaged, not typical kind of background environment. And schools get about £935 a year at secondary level to support those children so that they can be on par with their peers in academic and experiences within schools. So why science, and why were we trying to do this? Well, there's been lots of government initiatives to widen participation in science and certainly to increase disadvantaged students' opportunities within science. There's also a continuous process. I was offered a job the other day, actually, down the road to teach physics, because there is a shortage of physics teachers going on, especially in Lincolnshire and within the locality, and chemistry. So at the moment we have biology teachers teaching chemistry, and we have maths teachers teaching physics, we have PE teachers teaching biology, and they're not specialists. So there's a clear shortage. So that was something else that we were well aware of when we did this project. As I said, there's a growing need to ensure that these disadvantaged students do as well as their peers. You know, they've got a tough time at home. Why shouldn't they do just as well as their peers, if not better, in these schools? And there's a need for schools and colleges to do this. And obviously, statistically, they do far less well in their GCSEs than their peers. So that's kind of setting the scene. What Ian and I found was that there's currently in England no paired mentoring programme going on which involves pairing undergraduates, hence academically asymmetrical, with Year 11 students who are classed as disadvantaged. So that was what we wanted to try and achieve. What do we mean by paired mentoring? So paired mentoring, if you take Vygotsky's idea, is anything where you've got a person who knows slightly more than the other one. Simple idea. Hence the academically asymmetrical paired mentoring. So we were getting these undergraduates that were studying science, STEM-related subjects at a university, and pairing them with Year 11s who were going through their GCSE science. So that's biology, chemistry, and physics is combined. Now this idea, I can't take credit for, much as I'd like to, is actually based on an initial idea called the PAIRAC project, which is over at the Weizmann Institute, and it's currently going on with about 15% of all undergraduates at Israel's institution takes part in this. And the idea is, and New Zealand's name, the MATES programme, kind of give a little bit more of the information. But it's the idea that basically an undergraduate goes in and becomes like a big brother or a big sister to these Year 11 students. Now, there's a slight slight problem in the UK with safeguarding, that we can't really have undergraduates going into schools and being kind of best brother, best sister kind of environment with them. So we had to adapt it slightly to meet kind of the needs of schools around here. But the idea is the same. That what we're trying to achieve, what Reiser et al. Have spoke about, is that with this kind of paired mentoring, you should be able to achieve an improvement in their test scores, an improvement in their motivation and attitude towards science, something that's really important because science is generally seen as a hard subject. Most children don't want to study science, okay? And also an increased familiarity with environments other than their own. There tends to be this kind of theme amongst disadvantaged or pupil premiums, the same name, that they can't go to university, that they're not bright enough to go to university. The idea of coming to university is just not within their sights. So again, that's another element that we wanted to try to improve, as well as their self-esteem and self-confidence. A lot of these disadvantaged students feel that they aren't capable, that they don't have that ability to do well. So that's what we were trying to achieve with that. So our key research question was, does the paired mentoring of Year 11 students from disadvantaged backgrounds with undergraduates studying STEM subjects, and that's really important, they had to be on a science, technology, engineering, math kind of programme, improve Year 11 students' academic attainment in and attitude towards science at GCSE. So, how did we do this? Well, we set it up as a randomised controlled trial. At this point, when I'm talking to people outside, I tend to say, does anyone know what that is? And I do Rachel's quick guide to an RCT, which I can do really well in here. So, most of you in here know it, so please do not take offence from my quick guide. But the idea is that in a class of 30 in each of the schools that we used, and there were 4 schools, we had this lot getting it, this lot not. That's the simple guide. You who do RCTs all the time, I'm very sorry. So the idea is within that is that we were doing inter and intra-school comparisons. So we were comparing between the 4 schools and comparing within the 4 schools. The 4 schools were similar in sort of socio-demographics. GCSEs at the time were 5A star to Cs were similar, and the value-added performance. The undergraduates, there was about 40 of them, so we had 40 Year 11s that were mentored and 40 who weren't. They were all studying STEM subjects. They all held an A-level GCSEs in English, Maths and Science, which is typical if you were going on to be a science teacher or any kind of secondary primary school teacher. That was a normal requirement. And all the Year 11 pupils were classed as disadvantaged on the school systems and were CD borderline according to where they were in their current studies. At the time, this was based on their Key Stage 2 SATs results. However, more recently, secondary schools don't use that, so it's a completely different system called Fisher Family Trust. So what was the plan? So undergraduates were randomly paired, so it wasn't like, I'm going to put you with this person, it was all random. And the mentoring took place in schools over 23 weeks. So it started from just around October and finished prior to their GCSE exams. So once a week for an hour, the undergraduates went off to the schools and they worked with their Year 11 on any aspect of the GCSE science that they were struggling with. And the reason why we've spoken about this as being mentoring and not tutoring is because it wasn't just focused on passing the science exam, okay? It was about giving them an opportunity to say, I'm really struggling with homeostasis. I don't know what it is, I don't know what it means, can we work on it? Or I've really enjoyed doing this topic in school today, can we talk about it a little bit more? So there wasn't that focus on just tutoring with one end goal, but it was about mentoring. It was about supporting that child to see that they can do well. There was also an intensive 1-day or a 6-hour revision day here at the university. So they got a full day in kind of a university environment. They got to visit sort of the engineering hub and go in that machine that moves around. Don't really know what it does, but there we go. They also did 1 hour of biology, chemistry, and 1 hour biology, and 1 hour chemistry and 1 hour physics revision. And during that, it was very much focused on their GCSE exam papers, so what they were expected to get in about a week later. During the university day, they also got an opportunity to kind of experience university life, go and get food, So we had some very hyper children by the 3 o'clock that day. So what did we find? Well, it's kind of obvious, really. If you're giving children more support, you would expect them to do well. But what we didn't expect was that they did statistically significantly better in both their academic attainment from their mocks that they sat in January and their final GCSE that they sat in the May-June time. And that was significantly better than the control group. Okay. We also found a statistically significant greater improvement in terms of their attitude towards science. So we gave them a questionnaire at the start of the mentoring and at the end, and they actually improved in terms of their science attitudes. They started to think that maybe they could do science, maybe they would be interested to carry on with science post-16. And that was in comparison to the control group as well. Oh, gone too far. Now this was one aspect that we didn't foresee, we didn't expect, but actually there were 21 undergraduates that were in their 3rd year, some of which were going on to a 4th year of study, but some, in fact 6, who said that they didn't intend to be a teacher at the time when they came for interview to be on the programme, actually then went on to do teacher training programmes and are now teachers. So we were really, really impressed with that. I've also been in touch with some of them that have gone on to do primary school teaching. So even though they've not gone into science, they've still gone into teaching. I've also had some that have gone down to the mental health unit in London. I had to write a reference for her to go down to there. But anyway, so there's lots of different elements there. But the fact that some of them who had no interest in teaching, from working on a one-to-one basis with a disadvantaged pupil, then felt actually I could go and be a teacher, was pretty impressive for us. So the sort of 3 main conclusions here is that yes, it did improve their results in terms of their GCSE science, it improved their attitudes towards science, and we had some undergraduates that went on to train to teach. So where has that now led us? Well, Ian has been successful with myself and 5 other universities in obtaining a nice amount of money, which I wish was in my back pocket, from the Education Endowment Foundation, Welcome. And we've called it the ASCENTS one-to-one support for science. And we're doing exactly the same thing in the pilot, but we've now made it on a bigger scale. So each of the 5 universities are getting around 77 undergraduates to mentor 77 Year 11s from local schools that are classed as pupil premium, that are now the 3 to 5 boundary as opposed to C to D on the new GCSEs. And we're going to do it exactly the same over 23 weeks of mentoring. So we're starting from October all the way through to May with a revision day at the university as well. So I've been all over the country training undergraduates at the moment. So that is me. Thanks very much.